Excellent. Hello, welcome back to the Eighth Plot, book from scratch. However, this is not the normal live stream. It's a slightly different live stream for Book to Scratch. And what I'm trying to do with the book from scratch live stream is show you how to write a book live, so you can see as much of the process as possible, what an author actually does to write a book and how they transfer ideas to the page. And one of the most difficult things of writing is actually kind of like taking what's in your head and thinking, what do I actually do? What do I actually type? Okay, I think it's one of the hardest things to do. Like forming the sentences, getting the right kind of descriptions, and trying to understand what kind of dialogue you need. There's lots of great advice, but it's not really shown how to go from the advice to that little middle bit, which is generating all like the words and sentences and paragraphs and chapters and so on, and then typing and writing it out. And what I do on the live stream, it sort of revolves around me describing to you what I intend to write and what I've planned out. Like, you can see what I've got. The characters will do this, then they'll do that, then they'll do this. You know, A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, and so on within a given scene, within a given chapter. And then I describe it to you as I write it, why I'm writing that. And I've realised there's a little problem, is that you're not seeing what's going on inside my head. So it's a little bit difficult to take what you think about. What's that about? Anyway, it's a little difficult to take what you're thinking about and putting on the page if we're not on the same page. Like, you're not seeing what's in my mind and how I type it out. So to try and bridge that gap, we're going to do something different. So every so often I'm going to take a break from the main book, with Fortis and Huxton and their journey and their epic fantasy with all the other genres and whatnot. And I'm gonna take a film or TV clip and explain how I would write that scene. So the scene is what would be in my mind if I was an author, and then you'd see me type it, and I'd be able to, on this way, you would know what, because I'm doing this particular scene that I choose, you know exactly what's happened as if I've seen it in my mind, and when I start typing it out, you can keep that link, and I think it will be a little bit easier, and you'll kind of see, how do I write that? You might have a completely different scene. Maybe you've got a scene, two people meeting each other for the first time, and and they kiss for the first time or something, and you'd kind of imagine how that plays out. And if I showed you a TV or film clip of exactly that, I would then write how I describe it, and you can see the link between the scene in your head and the words that appear on paper, or on TV screen, that your reader digests and hopefully forms the same image, or at least they get the same vibe. So let's click today's scene. This is today's case study. It's a very short, 20 seconds, and it's just when Darth Vader is introduced in Star Wars. And you've probably seen this film before, maybe this scene before. And because it's in a film, you probably haven't thought about how this actually manifested on a script. But even a script isn't the full detail of what a book is. A script is usually just dialogue and like what the director, scriptwriter expects to happen and how it should be shown. And then the creative types like the director, scene lighting, everything, actors all decide how that manifests on a screen. But we're going to take this scene. Think of this is in your head. This is what you're imagining for your evil villain entrance. And then I'm going to write it out to the best of my ability. And then you kind of get an idea about how you take the pictures in your mind and put them on the page. So let's watch first. That's it. That's all we kind of need, right? So now you know what the scene is, and you think that's like 20 seconds, not a lot happened, How are you going to go about describing that in a sufficient amount? Well, this is how we're going. This is what we're going to do, and I'm going to have to do it from my. Let's go down a bit. From something I've already kind of written it beforehand, but we'll go for it step by step. Now, actually, let's re-watch it, and let's just talk about the main things that actually happen in it. So, obviously, the music doesn't matter, but you got the snap hiss of the door instantly focuses the watcher, and in this case, it should kind of focus the reader's attention on it. You got the stormtrooper stepping to one side. In he comes. Obviously, the music doesn't appear on text. You can't write, and then the music's swelled, unless you're writing some sort of comedy. In he comes. You get this first sense of his breath. There's all the gunshots happening in the background. The stormtroopers are just waiting, pausing, wondering what to do. Darth Vader takes a look around. This is good. And then moves on. And the stormtroopers follow him. Remember that this is all telling a little bit about his character as well. So that's exactly what happens. And before, okay, there's a couple of things you need to think of before you write what is in your head and what's in in this scene. And that you have to kind of decide, is this going to be done from Vader's POV, and is that first person or third person? Or is it someone else's POV, first and third person, or kind of a more omniscient sort of look upon this scene? Now, this is shown to us by the director in sort of third person, Vader's POV. And we know this because Vader is the main character. It's who we follow and care about, and everything in this scene is dictated by what he does. It's not like we don't have a shot of the stormtrooper going and then standing to attention, and then we watch the stormtrooper as he observes Vader and sees what we see. No, there's the focus on Vader. It's focusing on Vader. He's doing this. He's looking around, and off he goes to the screen. So that's third person Vader's. It's Vader's POV, but it's a bit more omniscient than that. And it's clearly focused on Vader and his reactions. And you have to think about that, because if you're visualizing this scene, you have to write it differently depending on what POV you do. For example, if you wanted to be in Vader's head, he's going to come across very differently. Like, as he walks through the door, is he going to think much? Is he going to comment on what he sees? And does that pitch him as an actual evil villain, or does it pitch him a bit more of like he's a bit of a self-indulgent kind of person? Like, does he watch the stormtrooper stand to attention and he's pleased by that? They know to fear me. But then again, you could do the exact same thing where he sees the stormtrooper stand to attention and he goes, that's so delightful that they think I'm such a villain, and I could kill them in one shot, which I could. And that produces a very different character to Lord Vader. One is a bit more stoic and reserved, but the other is like always playing at being an evil villain. So both those things you need to balance those depending on how you write it. Now, I'm writing from the kind of how the director wanted Vader to be shown, so I'm showing his just how evil he is, but also that he's not narcissistic about it, he's not aggrandizing, he just behaves this way, and this is how he behaves, and it's not for a performance, it's just who he is, and it sends a message to us. So let's get started. Imagine I'm the writer of Star Wars. I'm kind of George Lucas, and I'm visualizing this scene. How do we write it? So this is how I'm going to do it. There was a snap hiss as the door rose. Now, obviously, everything that came before it, you know what comes before it, you know what comes after it. I don't have to write those things. I don't have to set up the door. I don't have to set up the previous battle. It's just this scene of introducing Lord Vader that is going on from everything that happened before. There was a snap hiss as the door rose. Smoke from destroyed equipment and burning flesh wafted around as the door disturbed the air. Stepping through the mist came a figure like death itself. Clad in black armor, with a cape of darkness falling from his broad shoulders, strode Darth Vader. Let's go up a little bit. Stormtroopers snapped to attention. Hang on a minute, sorry, it probably should be the Stormtroopers snapped to attention before they even saw him, as if his presence went before him like a bow wave, arriving as goosebumps on one's flesh before anything else. One knew to immediately respect this man, if he was even that anymore. Okay, I'm gonna bash the whole thing out, but you know what the scene was, so you can see how this is being developed in as I write. Let's keep going. If he was that anymore, I'll figure out any sort of editing in a second. His expression was unreadable, hidden behind a mask with a triangular. Oh, hey, mask. Hidden behind a mask with a triangular mouthpiece and dark red lenses over the eyes. He made no sound as he moved, except for the deep, resonating breaths he took. His breathing was almost hypnotizing, clear. With a near wheezing intake of breath and calm exhalation. Is it exhalation? Sounds right. Let's see what Google says. Exhalation. The process of breathing air out. Not good. Got it right. Sometimes that happens with your writing. You're going to get the wrong word. Okay. Vader stopped in the middle of the ship's corridor. Around him were the bodies of rebels and his own troops. He put his hand on his hips as he surveyed. As he surveyed the carnage around him. He looked over the field of battle only for a moment, then continued. The dead were of no use to him. Okay. Okay, there we go. Good, reasonable start. Like, you're probably hearing this and reading this and thinking, come on, you made some mistakes there. You might notice that there's possibly a not always third-person POV, and maybe I'm stepping beyond the bounds of it. I'll get that stuff kind of later. But this is all about how the progress of the scene goes. So what we'll do now, let's go back to the scene, and I'm going to read that over the top. I'll be pausing every so often to catch up, so I catch up with what's going on. So let's read this. Actually, I should probably mute it for the sake of it. Okay. So what you write has to communicate kind of what you see, and as much of it as possible, like smell, taste, touch, sound, so on and so forth. So as I read this, I'm going to play and pause it as I go. There was a snap hiss as the door rose. Smoke from destroyed equipment and burning flesh wafted around as the door disturbed the air. Stepping through the mist came a figure like death itself. Clad in black armour, with a cape of darkness falling from his broad shoulders, strode Darth Vader. The stormtroopers snapped to attention before they even saw him, as if his presence went before him like a bow wave, arriving as goosebumps on one's flesh before anything else. One knew to immediately respect this man, if he was even that anymore. His expression was unreadable, hidden behind a mask with a triangular mouthpiece and dark red lenses over the eyes. He made no sound as he moved, except for the deep, resonating breaths he took. His breathing was almost hypnotizing, with a near wheezing intake of breath and calm exhalation. Vader stopped in the middle of the ship's central corridor. Around him were the bodies of rebels and his own troops. He put his hands on his hips as he surveyed the carnage around him. He looked over the field of battle only for a moment, then continued. The dead were of no use to him. Okay. There we go. Read it with the scene playing. Now, let me just break down why I chose those words as I was writing it, and what I took from the scene as if it was my own thoughts, as if it was my trying to get this scene in my head so I could write it for a potential reader. So why did I go, there was a snap hiss as the door closed, as the door rose. That's like the scene. It's like the door rose, draw your attention to it, and if a door rises, if a door opens, something's going to come through it. So there's an expectation there. Now, why did I write smoke from destroyed equipment and burning flesh wafted around as the door disturbed the air? So sometimes it's about sequencing. So obviously what you write has to lead on naturally to what comes next, sentence by sentence, or paragraph by paragraph. So that if the door's opening, it should have some effect on what's coming next. You link the door, it's either the person walks through it. In this case, I've linked it to how the smoke, I want to tell the reader about the smoke and where it's come from and kind of give them a sense of what it's like. If it's smoke rising from a body, it's going to smell like a charred corpse. Should a reader know what that is? But also, like, they'll understand. They know what burning is, and they will be drawn to it. So again, the door rose, focal point, what's going to come through it, expectation for the reader. And I could have done two different things I can think of right now. You either connect that door opening to what's happening in the scene, and that's what I did. It disturbs the smoke, and then I can describe what the smoke's come from, and it gives the reader an impression of the environment. Or I could have done the door rose and instantly walks out Darth Vader, connecting what came before it with his appearance and what should happen to him next. Now, by referencing the smoke, it's referencing the previous battle as well, with the smoke around the air, like the mist, that the carnage of the battle is still present, and by using, it's a bit haunting when you say flesh, like this has come from dead people. Now, the second paragraph, stepping through the mist came a figure like death itself. Now, that's to like be, by saying death itself, it's a nice easy way of connecting the reader to a visual image, because we all think of death as being this cloaked dark figure who we immediately associate with something that's bad, evil, unwanted perhaps. So it's a quick visual image that I'm going to build upon later, and by actually leaving the reader hanging a little bit before I continue, it's it's drawing them in. Clad in black armour, with a cape of darkness falling from his broad shoulders, strode Darth Vader. Now, the image of death is now more solidified and specific. The armour suggests a warrior. The cloak of darkness is the reader's going to think, has he got actual darkness coming off his shoulders? Is this magic? And I kind of want that, because Darth Vader is a bit magical. He uses the Force, for example. And so I'm just going to check on something. Nope, that's fine. And it's like, strode is a purposeful description. Like, it's not just walking. It's not skipping. It's strode, like purposeful. So when you describe someone, you can use the words to increase the depth of the description. So saying black armor is not just saying that he's wearing black armor. It's also, well, that must mean something about, like, bureaucrats don't wear black armor. Footballers don't wear armor. How you describe what they're dressed in tells you a little bit more. So black armor implies some kind of warrior. Okay? Now, the next one. The stormtroopers snapped to attention before they even saw him, as if his presence went before him like a bow wave, arriving as goosebumps on one's flesh before anything else. One knew immediately to respect this man. That's what I was missing. To respect this man, if he was that anymore. So what's this paragraph about? Now, his reputation precedes him, and again, it's a little bit more magical, that there's something larger than life about this person. Like, the snap door hisses, they kind of look, but can they see him with all that mist? Probably not, but they know, and they kind of sense something about him. And by writing it from that perspective for the reader is instantly getting the attention that what makes this person scary is not how that person describes themselves or acts, it's how the people around them react to them. They're clearly scared, and that kind of leads to respect. Now, by saying if he was that anymore is sort of further emphasized by this next paragraph. His expression was unreadable, hidden behind a mask with a triangular mouthpiece and dark red lenses over the eyes. Now, obviously, the reader, if this was a book, the reader has a visual image of what Darth Vader looks like exactly. So you're going to kind of have to give a bit more description very quickly after the character is first introduced. So, and this obviously builds upon what I just said, that if he was even a man anymore. And this kind of says it all. And like, who hides behind a mask with a triangular mouthpiece? That obviously seems to be helping him to breathe. He made no sound, sort of like he's not thundering footsteps. He's not trying to make his presence known in any other way than his striking visual image. But his breathing is something he can't hide. It is a part of the character. So, like, but if you had written Star Wars, read it, and then they made a film about it, you need to get the breathing like right, because it is kind of hypnotic, that it keeps going throughout the film, and it draws your attention, and it should be something iconic about the character, which of course it is. Vader stopped in the middle of the ship's corridor. That's just, you're going to have to situate so your reader knows exactly where your characters are. Doesn't mean they have to keep moving. You don't have to describe everything they do, and they touched that, did that, fiddled with this, doesn't matter. But you do every so often have to situate them for them to understand the scene, especially since some details of the scene would be known. The reader would have read the previous battle, then they get to this bit, then they move on to the next bit. Around him were the bodies of rebels and his own troops. He put his hand on his hips and surveyed the carnage around him. He looked over the field of battle only for a moment, then continued. The dead were of no use to him. Now that's probably where the third-person POV, I'm overstepping the bounds a little bit and going into a bit more omniscient. It's because I'm telling you now, not showing you, that he considers these bodies like, this happened, I'm moving on, talk to someone else. And he does, and clearly, I'll cover that in a second. He obviously is indifferent to everything that's going on. Now, there's probably, this is where I should edit a little bit. I don't have time today, but you can probably see where that some of this is telling rather than showing. Although this kind of telling is fine. Like, around him were the bodies of rebels and his own troops. They don't have to try and show that. Like, Vader looks down, sees a guy dressed like that, looks around, sees a dressed like that, and then that informs the reader. The reader already knows that these are a mixture of rebels and stormtroopers, because in a previous scene you would have described how they both died in this battle. So that's telling, that's fine, because you're just trying to move the story forward, and it's stuff they already know, so you don't have to show it. He put his hands on his hips as he surveyed the carnage around him. Now, this is probably a bit of a mistake. He put his hands on his hips. That kind of already tells people what they're doing. People put their hands on their hips when they're kind of like irritated, bit frustrated, waiting for something maybe. So the worst part of this sentence is the telling part of the sentence, as he surveyed the carnage around him. Perhaps I should be. He put his hands on his hips, looked down, taking in the blast wounds, the smell of iron from charred blood in the air. I don't know, it needs a bit more work, but there you go. And that's kind of showing that he's surveying the carnage, as opposed to just telling the reader he's doing it. But I don't know if that's necessary. That seems like extra detail you don't need. And this is definitely telling, but you see, this is the point. Is this too omniscient? But you will catch that in the edit. Whatever you may think of what needs to be edited here, this is still exactly what you saw, described in a way that at least, well, I'm speaking from the fact this is my own writing, that I think works and accurately describes what was just seen. Now, hang on a second. What I want to do... come on. I'm just gonna copy and paste this because this was a different example. That's how you describe that thing, that scene, and it completely works. But let me just give you something I did where you could, just to show you how you change it if you wanted to do a different perspective. So what if you wanted to do this funny? At least I think this is funny. Maybe it's not. Who cares? But basically, the exact same meaning behind each paragraph, but with a little bit of added humour. Let me just increase the size of this as well. Yeah, that'll probably do. Right. Okay. So if I wanted to make it funny-ish, this is how I would do the same scene. Let's see, let's just add some spaces for some extra stormtroopers. Capitalize Vader. Okay. Okay, good. Where was I? Okay, so possibly you decide, you let me know. Is this funnier? As stormtroopers checked the dead, an easy task given the lack of motivation to fight back, there was a snap hiss from the door as it opened and rose into the ceiling. Smoke from destroyed equipment and burning flesh wafted around as the door disturbed the air. Stepping out of the mist came a figure like death itself, or at least a version of death with an aggressive management style. Clad in black armour, with a cape of darkness falling from his broad shoulders, strode Darth Vader, the kind of man who would put "kill someone today" on his daily planner. The stormtroopers snapped to attention before they even saw him, as if his presence went before him like a bow wave, arriving as goosebumps on one's flesh before anything else. Trooper FN 187 tried quietly to step behind another trooper, best not to be first in line if Lord Vader was angry this morning. Vader's expression was unreadable, hidden behind a mask with a triangular mouthpiece and dark red lens over the eyes. He made no sound as he moved, except for slightly difficult breaths. He sucked in air like a retired sword swallower, who was very bad at his job. Vader stopped in the middle of the ship's central corridor to assess the morning's brutality. Around him were the bodies of rebels and his own troops. He put his hand on his hips as he surveyed the carnage around him, like a PE teacher watching to make sure the students doing press-ups didn't try a low dip. Satisfied everyone who was supposed to be dead was dead, and the corpses of his own men proved a productive morning, he went looking for a victim. Now, you may say it's not funny, that's fine, but why I tried to write it that way, to be funny, and it shifts and so if you would, like, the other perspective is serious, and this perspective is if I'm writing a comedy book. So the stormtroopers check the dead, an easy task given the lack of motivation to fight back. A very weird, strange way to describe someone, like, oh, they've been shot. So that obviously means they're not going to put up much of difficulty if the stormtroopers check them. I don't need to change. You don't. Oh, by the way, if you write something funny, not every single sentence has to be funny. Just keep the comedy going at a consistent rate. Stepping out of the mist came a figure like death itself, or at least a version of death with an aggressive management style. And that's kind of like who describes someone that way, an aggressive management style. But as you get to know Darth Vader, and if you know Darth Vader anyway, you know that aggressive management style is nearly there, but not quite an accurate description of his decisions to snap people's necks when they don't deliver the quarterly reports on time. The kind of man who would kill someone today on his daily planner. Well, like, again, who does that? It's a very strange, and it might make someone go, he is like that. Anyway, the stormtroopers snap to attention. Now, blah, 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 blah. Now, Trooper FN-187 tried quietly to step behind another trooper. Best not to be the first in line if Lord Vader was angry this morning. And there's a bit of humour there if you've got two people and someone like Lord Vader in the room, and you see someone go, I'm just going to step out of here and make sure and leave someone to be essentially strangled and killed with the Force. Not funny in and of itself, but it's could be humorous, and like you see it all the time that, you know, someone, unfortunately, in humour, sometimes it requires someone to be a bit of a jerk in order to make it funny. Lord Vader's expression was unreadable, etc., etc., etc. But here I tried to tell a joke that the reader has to figure out. He sucked in air like a retired sword swallower who was bad at his job. Now the reader probably going to go, wait, why is that? Oh, and they realise that a bad sword swallower probably stabs himself in the throat so many times. That's going to cause some problems breathing. I don't know, you tell me if that worked. I thought it did. Like a PE teacher watching to make sure students doing push-ups didn't try a low dip. That's just a bit of humour that links to lots of people's experience and about how they understand what it's like to have someone looming over them from a position of authority. Satisfied everyone who was supposed to be dead was dead, and the corpses of his own men proved a productive morning, he went looking for a victim, humorously trying to show the callousness of Darth Vader. So there you go, case study number 1, about how you take the scene as it appears in your head and transfer it to a page. I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to the channel, yes, to for more of these case studies and to catch up with where I'm taking the main book that I'm writing live. So if you want to write your own book, you can kind of see how it's done live. That's the whole point of this live stream. Check out Half Human, Prison Key, a completely unique series, which is all like the first school ever to publish their own book, traditionally publish their own book. I'm sure no other school in the whole of human history have ever done that. I'm probably wrong, but I think that's true. And I certainly can't name a book that was written by students, for students, by the readership, for the readership. And as you can see, I'm wearing this very, very lovely hoodie with the Half Human logo in it. It's a bit tight, but that's just my muscles. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.